I can hear you. Can you hear me? I'm going to take that as a no. Can you hear me, Robinson? Can you hear me, Robinson? I can hear you. Nope. Well, I can see your picture, but I cannot see or hear you. Sucker, sucker. Well, may not be able to do it this way if you have no camera, Robinson. Oh, you're probably on the wrong device. What about you, Chaz? Do you hear anything? This is typical. Typical, 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 typical. Well, now Robinson's in here twice.
What the hell?
Hi!
I'm so confused.
Don't be confused. I'm ejecting your other profile because you accepted the invitation twice.
On two different devices.
Right, that's why you got to learn how to log out of that cell phone device because that like fucks you up every week.
Just the feedback. But it logged itself. Oh, you logged me out.
I ejected you from the broadcast.
Okay.
So we have 7 minutes, and for some reason, still no Chaz. Even though he accepted the invitation. So, but this is working really well, and now I have better control over things too.
Okay, where do I send like the link to? Where's the link to invite someone to watch on YouTube?
Yes. Let me. So to invite a viewer.
If somebody wants to watch what we're doing right now.
Yes, yes, yes.
There is a link.
All right, I will send you that link right now.
Okay.
Copy. And I'm gonna send it to you. And I shall send it to you, motherfucker. Hangouts. Okay. And I see you. There you are. Got a lot of these fuckers. Alright, so you should be able to see this. Woo! I'm taking that as a yes. Now, can you turn those sounds off? Because I sent that to you and it comes through. So if your friend writes you back or chats with you, we hear the little bling, bling, bling all the time and it goes through the broadcast.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to. I don't know if I can. I don't know how to do that, other than.
There's got to be a way.
Okay, I see. I just have to basically turn everybody off except for you. I don't know how to keep them from coming back on.
I don't either.
Wait, that's Chet. Wait, who was that?
I was asking if Chaz was there.
You.
So I'm turning notifications off for that message. So now, how do I
Okay,
turn
that
the
was you.
fucking sounds off? Yeah, that was
That
still
was
me.
you.
Hold on. Here we go. Why
If
can't
I
I?
put headphones on, you won't hear that.
I have headphones on. The broadcast hears everything I do.
Right, but you're hearing, the broadcast is hearing my computer going blink.
It's hearing both. I think it hears when I send it too.
Uh,
We just need to turn that shit off. So that, see, like, whoever just sent that, who sent that? Somebody else?
yeah,
Yeah, how do you turn that off? There's got to be a way to turn it off.
I just turned her off.
There you go. All right, well,
She's coming back.
well, you should be able to mute her sounds
I
somehow.
can mute her sound, but I can't mute her bling.
Hmm.
And I've got two of you up at the same time. Why do I have two?
Because you probably clicked on the link that I sent you.
Okay, I'm in a video chat with that one, but I'm not in a video chat with this one, so I'm going to close this one. Are we still on? Okay, good.
Yep, I think so. I can still hear you.
All right, and I can still see you. All right. So, I did not do any research
Of course you didn't.
for the gossip show.
That's okay. You can just comment on the gossip show then.
Okay.
Because you're exactly right. It's going to be a trashy gossip show. It'll be fantastic. But where the fuck is Chaz?
I don't know.
And we might have to start without him. I was pretty sure he accepted the invitation. There he is.
There I am.
Hey
What's
Chaz,
up,
do
Chaz?
you have headphones that you can use instead of the speaker on the iPhone? Because I've noticed the problem we keep having is the way you're propping your phone up. The microphone is then picking up me, so we're hearing an echo of my voice.
Okay, let me go get my headphones.
Cool.
So, on the other side of the fence
Mm-hmm.
in the backyard, the neighbors have decided to put up a bouncy house today. 'Cause they're
Like a
having
real one?
like a big bouncy house.
Wow.
It's some kid's birthday,
Cool.
and they've got like a 1.5 minute song just on loop,
Wow. That
and
is
it's
very
been playing
noisy.
all fucking day, non-stop.
That's awesome.
And my buddy Patrick is about ready to go and slice holes in the bouncy house because he's so aggravated by the whole. Oh shit, that was really fucking loud. Okay.
I have the same problem from time to time. All right, that should be better and not as loud.
DUI microphone.
Perfect. All right, we got 1 minute, guys. 1 minute.
How do I sound?
You sound perfect.
Output.
There's that hissing sound in the background again, Chaz. I don't know if that's air conditioning or.
I'll go take care of it again.
Okay.
Okay, Mike.
Yep. You sound like shit, Robinson.
Am I talking through this little microphone?
That's and it sounds like anus.
Okay.
I just wanted you to know it. Like your computer microphone apparently sounds better.
Okay, well I just switched it over. Is that better?
I think so.
Okay.
Oh, that way you're recording off the computer microphone, not the little microphone, but you still have headphones.
Right. I can go like I can bypass this microphone.
Awesome. That sounds really good. All right, it is 12 o'clock. I'm going to start the remote broadcast if everybody is ready to do so.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
Remote broadcast has started. Uh-oh. I hope that doesn't fuck us up. All right. I've not seen that weird error happen before. So as long as... Now, of course, I get to hear myself in all of my weird feedback glory. It is 12 o'clock, which means it is time. We're going to see if we can hear ourselves. Because if we can... Yes, we are on the air. I love how we have to like check our own feed and determine if we're on. Here comes the bumper music. Fucking it. Don't sing the bumper music, Robinson. It's unprofessional.
All right, I'm going to mute my mic.
Welcome to a Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. I am your host. I am here with Robinson and Chaz. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello, gentlemen.
And we are back to our somewhat normal way of broadcasting this lovely show. We have Robinson back home in his home studio in Oakland, California. We have Chaz joining us live on his iPhone in Tempe, Arizona. And I am coming to you from the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast studios live from Phoenix, Arizona. So it's always funny, guys, because I laugh that we literally have no way of knowing whether we've gone live unless we listen to the Radio Valencia stream.
I know we have to have like another phone or something on the side.
Like, we literally just don't know if it worked or not.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you a secret. At the radio station, we have to do the same thing.
Really?
We have out in the lobby, there's a stereo receiver that has the live show going into the back of it through the audio input. Or you can switch it over to radio, which is the computer next to it, which is picking up the internet feed and then putting it into the radio. So there's a 14-second delay, but that's how we know if we're actually live, by
wow,
switching it over. And
Nice.
so yeah, same thing.
So what we're still working on getting the recording for the podcast of our Las Vegas episode last week. It apparently exists, and I reached out to administration or whatever you want to call it at Radio Valencia, and it should exist. I apologize to our listeners for the delay.
Both of them.
Well, all three of them. I think it's Chaz's mother, Robinson's brother, and my sister. Those are our listeners. But we're trying to get the podcast up. We have a lot more listeners via podcast than we do live. We know that. And so the podcast is very important. And thankfully, Radio Valencia archives all of the episodes of all of their shows, I would assume for legal reasons. But we're going to get that archive footage. We're going to post it on the goddamn website so that it can be a podcast that you can find on iTunes. Speaking of iTunes, please subscribe to our podcast via iTunes. It's how we know that you're listening. You just have to go to iTunes or your favorite podcast catcher. I think that's what they call podcaster, catch something. I don't know. Search Sober Happy Hour. Hit the subscribe button. Go to Facebook.com/Sober Happy Hour. Hit the like button. Follow us on Twitter. We don't tweet a lot on the Twitter, but that's because nobody's following us on Twitter. I mean, like, I think there's like 7 people following us on Twitter at this point.
Or 3 of them.
Right. And probably 2 of my accounts are part of that 7. So literally we have like 2 Twitter followers. But you know what? We're not on that Snappy Chat. We're not on the Instagrams. We're not that hip. So maybe we need to do that. I don't know. But this is the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast coming to you live. It is man, can you believe that it is already April, like 18th, 19th? Like, that's crazy that it is almost the latter part of April now. That just, I don't know. I just thought about that, like, because it's getting close to my mother's birthday, and my kids are going to be out of school soon, and it's like, holy shit, it's already, like, we're a third of the way through the year.
That's not cool. No.
It's
It
not
can't be
cool.
that quick.
Can you believe that it is
Hey.
already
Hey,
Who's listening?
April
Not
Somebody's
me.
doing that.
18th.
Is that
I'm out.
Radio Valencia or YouTube?
no, that's YouTube.
Yes, it's working.
We are live on YouTube right now, gentlemen.
And
Oh.
I wish that we
Do I look okay?
well, and I'm like not wearing clothes. So we're live on YouTube. I hope we don't get banned. No, I'm not naked.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Nah.
I think.
So-
Oh, here we go.
If you want, if you or anyone else wants to, for some strange masochistic reason, wants to watch this show live, apparently you could do so by searching Sober Happy Hour or SHHRP Live somewhere in the YouTube land. I have a link, but I'd have to send you that link, and I have absolutely no idea how to do that. So
I am going to do that right now. I have the link.
can you post it to the Sober Happy Hour Facebook?
Let me test it first.
Uh-oh.
Yes, I can.
Sweet. Go ahead and do that, and that way, if there are Facebook people,
Oh, wait.
they can click it, and they could watch us, and maybe during the break, I'll find a shirt to put on.
There it is.
Thankfully-
Okay, okay.
The video doesn't show me below the waist. Just saying.
And you're naked below the waist. Okay,
Aren't we
so
all? Anyway, so we thought, I don't know why, but I just kind of, I've been in a really good mood lately. Maybe it's because I had a little vacation, came back, and it was just, raring to go. So I've been in a good mood. I thought it would be fun. I thought last week's show was great. I wish I had a podcast version to go back and re-listen to. No finger pointing. But I wish I had listened, because I thought last week's episode was really good. At least it felt good. You know how you do those shows, and you'll do a show and it'll be like, man, that probably sucked a lot. And then you do another show and you're like, wow, that was a good show. Like, maybe that's the musician in me remembering the days of gigging with the band. You knew when you had a good show. But last week's show I felt was a good show. This week's show I wanted to be more lighthearted and a little bit fun. And I kind of thought there's no better way to accomplish that than to spend a couple of hours making fun of celebrities and talking about their drug and alcohol problems, talking about those celebrities who have successfully made it through a drug or alcohol problem, some that are still struggling with drugs and alcohol, maybe some that are budding addicts, the Miley Cyruses of the world who just, they want nothing more than to be on celebrity rehab or something, and and
If it
So-
goes back on the air.
say that again.
I said if it goes back on the air.
Well, and that was going to be part of the conversation. That
Mhm.
celebrity rehab show got taken off the air a little while back, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. I figured we could talk about some of the more famous celebrity drug addict recovery stories, and some of the tragic ones. The Amy Winehouses of the world, all the way back to the Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison days of addiction,
Mhm.
before we really started caring enough about that stuff to do anything about it with these celebrities that we put on a pedestal and treat larger than life. Because as much as Robinson hates this topic, what I find interesting about it is we we really do in this world, we idolize celebrity. As little kids, people dream of becoming a celebrity. We have people who are famous for being famous. You know, the Kardashians of the world.
Yeah.
Paris Hilton, Nicole Richie. These aren't people that got famous because they're talented in any way. They got famous because they had money or because they became popular for some reason, and then they were famous for being famous. And somebody like a Kim Kardashian literally has the tabloid magazines on her payroll, and the paparazzi knows where Kim Kardashian's going to be because Kim Kardashian tells the paparazzi where she's going to be. Because if she's not getting harassed by paparazzi, she's got a brand problem. So we have a serious celebrity problem in this country, but there is a positive side to that, in my opinion, and that is celebrities are human beings just like you and me, and they can and do suffer from addiction problems. And when a celebrity falls into addiction, we watch it on the 24-hour news cycle. We watch them, go Britney Spears crazy, and we watch it like a train wreck, right? You just can't turn away. The part that makes me sad is I don't think we spend enough time as a society giving any positive recognition to the celebrities who have gotten over their addiction or at least managing it. We love to look at the Lamar Odom, falling off the wagon and buying crack cocaine in West Hollywood, but do we talk a lot about the, Oprah Winfrey used to battle with drugs early on in her career, and now she's, this juggernaut of a human being with gazillion dollars and a lot of power. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about Robin Williams being sober for 20 years. We talk about Robin Williams taking his own life and then start drawing these weird conclusions that he must have fallen off the wagon, which apparently wasn't true. So I think celebrities are in a unique position to help destigmatize and help convince people who may need some convincing that recovery is possible, and you don't have to be a millionaire to get sober, but their lives are so public that we get to see them struggle through this, and who knows, maybe somebody makes a connection. I personally don't see it that way too much, but we may have younger people in the audience listening that really do sort of, idolize certain celebrities, and you look at it from the flip side, like a Justin Bieber or a Miley Cyrus, and their drug use or alcohol abuse could potentially lead a younger person down a slippery slope. So it kind of cuts both ways.
Yeah.
Well, I've yet to meet someone who ever, started out their whole, addiction and sobriety monologue saying, you know what, when I was a kid, I saw I saw Justin Bieber or some other celebrity, doing drugs, and, I thought to myself, yeah, I want to do that.
Well, and I get what you're saying, and I agree with you, but I think it's more that person is celebrity. That person is successful and wealthy and lives in a mansion and drives a Lamborghini and has a bodyguard, and they do drugs. So drugs must not be that bad, right? If they can associate the drugs with the celebrity rather than associating the drugs with the bum on the street, then it could potentially create an in there.
It could normalize it for them, yeah.
Right. So
it's a lot of responsibility for any celebrity to admit publicly that they do any kind of drugs because of anyone who idolizes them or admires them who follows that makes it basically they're pretty much liable for encouraging that kind of behavior. And if
Well,
somebody
and
gets
that's
in
the sad
trouble or gets hurt or killed because it's it goes back to the rock stars saying, singing like hate, kill, murder songs, and then kids go out and hate and kill and murder, and then the parents and the schools and the society and the community all blame the band when the band is just expressing themselves in an artistic way. But even still, the bands, they have to say no, no drugs, no drugs, no drugs, because they don't want to be, liable for that
well,
kind
and
of shit.
and I think that's an interesting part of it that very recently, like within the last 24 hours, there was a video of Rihanna at Coachella apparently doing a line of cocaine. Just, it's Coachella. It's 3 days, man. 72 straight hours. Bump. I need a little bump. That's what Rihanna was saying. What do they call her? Riri? Come on, Riri, do some blow with me. She's like, all right. But then she turns around, and instead of just being like, hey, you know what? I probably shouldn't have done that. Or, hey, you know what? Fuck yeah, I did some blow with my friends. Don't judge me. I didn't kill anybody. I didn't drive drunk. I took some blow with my friends, and I'm not a drug addict, so suck my dick. Like, I don't know. But instead, she turns around and just starts, vehemently denying these claims that the video's not her, or that she wasn't doing drugs in the video and it's being misconstrued and it's not fair. And I'm sure her publicist is freaking out about it because, like you said, Robinson, they somehow end up taking responsibility for it, or they become publicly liable, not legally liable, not honestly liable, but just
Right.
liable in the public eye. Like, oh, my daughter who idolizes Rihanna is now going to do blow off of a hooker's ass because she saw Rihanna do blow at Coachella. And I think that's horseshit, and it bothers me, but that's the reality that we live in.
It is, well, depending on the age and the influential age of the person that's idolizing the celebrity. That has a lot to do with it.
Or I would say not so much age, but maturity level.
Maturity level, yeah.
So what I think is celebrities, so it kind of comes with the territory, in my opinion. If you're a celebrity and you're in the public eye and you're not the type of celebrity that tries to keep your private life private, and you're all over social media and you're followed by the paparazzi or whatever, then there may be a bit of an obligation, or at least a moral obligation, to limit the public use of drugs and alcohol, especially somebody that knows that they are maybe more popular amongst a younger, more easily influenced crowd of people. And I don't know that that's fair, but that's just the reality. And should that mean, though, that we demonize, in this case specifically, Rihanna for taking drugs at Coachella? Whether or not it's true, I don't care.
No. Not for taking the drugs, but for doing a public display. That's something that should be private. That's something that's, personal and private. You do it with, personal friends. You don't do it in front of a camera. Unless it's, like me right here on this show doing a big fat line. That's different because I'm doing it as part of the show.
Oh, I didn't know we would have a show and tell section of the program.
It's my character.
Well, was this like something that was filmed off the side, like someone had their camera phone out?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
I think so.
I don't think it was like, hey, let's make a video of this.
Right. She was like, hey, video camera guy, come film this.
Yeah, that's true. You never know who's filming you in a situation like that, but you kind of have to. It is the responsibility of the celebrity to, keep an eye out for those things.
So what I thought was interesting was that publicly she went on the denial rampage, right? She was denying the whole thing. It never happened. But what I thought was bizarre and kind of frustrating was it went from Rihanna snorts a line of coke at Coachella to Rihanna, the cocaine addict. Like,
Yeah.
within minutes, people are wondering
exactly.
and writing articles about, does Rihanna have a drug problem? Is she going to end up in rehab and all this kind of crazy shit? And I feel like, go ahead, Robinson, you have something to say.
Well, when I do coke on this show, I'm actually just doing a line of powdered sugar because it's all for show. Now, what Rihanna should have said was, come on, you guys, it was powdered sugar. I knew the camera was there. I was doing it as a joke. And then
Right.
everyone would go, okay, well, maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. Now there's a big question mark. Was she doing it as a show or did she not? No one really knows. So make more of a question mark, you know? Play it off. Do something smart. Don't just try to backpedal your way out of it because it makes you look stupid and irresponsible.
Well, it also makes, at least me as a viewer, if I were a Rihanna fan and maybe a recovering drug addict or maybe a full-blown cokehead, I would be offended that she thinks I'm that stupid, right? Like, I know what it looks like when someone is taking a line of coke off of a table at a concert. I know what that looks like. That's what that looks like. Do you really think I'm that stupid that I'm going to watch that video and now you're going to tell me that's not what you were doing? You're insulting my intelligence and I am offended. So,
hey, before we go any further,
yeah.
I want to say, since this is actually a real video program at this point, can you lose the pop screen?
If I lose the pop screen, then
it
sounds all puppy. Puppy.
It's not. It doesn't really make that big of a difference. But it's just we can see her face now, and it's like you've always been hiding behind this thing, like the, you know.
You know what I need? I need a lavalier microphone.
You need that thing that you used to have when you were playing with Arbor Circle, that little invisible microphone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Where is it?
There. Dude.
Where is it?
You know how much of my shit is missing? I don't know if it's
missing or misplaced.
Honestly I think stolen.
Okay.
Yeah. When you work alongside starving musicians long enough, you realize that the things you think you lost ended up on eBay somewhere.
Yeah.
So no, but that was I can do this without the pop screen. I'll just try to keep my P's to a minimum.
Okay.
I was gonna try to think of a P word, but
Peter Purcell Pedersen had a pet pig named Porky.
How you know that?
Peter Pedersen's pet pig Porky loved pie. He loved peach pie, pumpkin pie, pineapple pie, pizza pie, and mint tarts. Peter Purcell Pedersen's pet pig Porky ate so much pie that he puked. No, he popped. That's what he did.
Same difference.
That's a good pop screen story. Where's my beer?
So, I guess
Tonight's show is being sponsored by Stella.
I have a dog named Stella. Not named after the beer.
Yeah,
so,
Stella.
My kind of the whole point of the Rihanna rant was to shed some light on the idea that I feel like we've made a mess of this drug use situation in this world, that people can use drugs. I want to be very clear. People can recreationally use drugs, and I honestly don't have a problem with that. A lot of people think, I preach sobriety and recovery and abstinence and whatever. I preach that for addicts, right? But I mention in shows, I've mentioned in numerous episodes of this show, that if I could drink and or use drugs safely, I would. Like that's what it comes down to. I don't have a problem with drugs as a recreational tool or alcohol as something to do. I don't have a problem with that. So the idea that Rihanna, a grown adult, made the decision to take some cocaine, I have no problem with that. Do I think it wise that it ended up on the internet where her, 14-year-old fans are going to see her doing cocaine? No, probably not a great decision. But her using the drug does not matter to me. The bigger problem that I have with this story is the media and the circus of the internet people jumping on top of her now, calling her an addict. That's the part that rubs me the wrong way.
Well, okay. As far as things that the media and society at large could, jump on Rihanna as far as setting a bad example for people, let's talk about going back to Chris Brown after he beat the living hell out of her and, just being all really nice and cool with that. What kind of message does that send? Oh, wait, you blew a line of coke? Oh, my God, you're setting such a horrible example for people. There are more...
I so agree with everything you're saying right now.
There are more, pressing and intense social messages sent by certain things other than just looking like you did drugs on a grainy video that wound up on the internet.
Did you watch it?
No. I'm assuming that's really...
It's not very grainy.
Oh, really? It's really... Okay, so it's clear then.
That's pretty obvious.
So, nevertheless, the pictures of her busted-ass face were also pretty, pretty explicit insofar as, your relationship choices.
Well, and just how we treat women in this world, and how it sends the message that it's acceptable to be a female, get the shit beat out of you by your boyfriend, and then accept his apology and carry on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the drug side of it at the same time is an opportunity, I think, as a human being to step up and say, hey, you know what? Doing drugs is probably not the best decision I could make. But it was a decision that I made that night, and I do not see it as a problem in my life. I am not a drug addict. I don't do this often. I made a bad decision. I apologize to any of my fans whom I have disappointed, and I definitely do not encourage others to partake in illicit drug use. And because the drug was illegal, because it was cocaine, because it was not, her getting drunk and acting stupid, this was an illegal substance that people, she could potentially be arrested for being in possession of or whatever. Because of the illicit drug use, acknowledging it, just like, all politics aside, we have had presidents now, our last 3 presidents of the United States have all admitted to using illegal drugs before they're elected president. I think as a society, we are okay with the idea of experimenting with drugs. And what is Rihanna, like 25 years old? Jesus Christ. So, again, to get back to the point of what really bothers me about the situation is somebody used drugs, they must be a drug addict. That's the part that makes me crazy.
Yeah. Well, there are drug users and drug abusers and drug addicts.
And an interesting... Go ahead.
I was going to say, what's really sad to me about as far as celebrities go is that all this goes to show is that these folks are human. and they have issues that millions of people deal with, and treating them like they're supposed to be these paragons of morality all the time, and they're always supposed to be on their best behavior. There's no manual or anything or introductory course to being a celebrity or anything that would, teach people how to be a celebrity responsibly or any other bullshit like that.
I'm gonna start a class.
Yeah. We need to start introductory courses on being a celebrity.
I love it.
Yeah, but there isn't anything, and so when they're, whenever they're caught being human, God forbid they do something wrong, we just jump all over them. And personally, I think it's I think it's a little sick. It's almost like we enjoy condemning people.
It's the watching a train wreck. It's the car accident thing.
Yep.
That's exactly what it is.
Or the kid falling off his skateboard and smashing his face on the curb. We all stop and look and laugh, and it's kind of a sick, sad feeling. But
and we stop and look and laugh because that kid made the decision to try a crazy skateboard trick without a helmet on. So there is an element of it where you're like, hey, that was your own stupid ass fault, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're not reaching that hand out to offer some assistance. We're just laughing or condemning or, watching quietly, with this weird interest in all of it. It's bizarre. But, I mean, the Rihanna story aside, there's something kind of on the opposite side of the same basic theme, where you look at somebody like Miley Cyrus. And I bring this chick up because she's a train wreck. Everybody knows that. But that has become her persona, right?
Right. That's true.
So she apparently had her some oral surgery or whatever. She had a tooth pulled. And I personally did not know that, semen was high in sugar content and caused cavities, so that's weird. She had a tooth, and apparently recovering from the pulled tooth, she posted pictures on Instagram of an entire table full of edible THC products. So, candy, brownies, all kinds of crazy shit that were purchased from her local medical marijuana store. And if it had been a pot lollipop, and that was hey, so I'm not into painkillers, so I'm going to eat this pot lollipop and hopefully my sore tooth won't hurt me anymore, that'd be one thing. This was a table full of probably $1,000 worth of pot products. And she posted on Instagram with hey, look at me, fun Saturday night recovering from oral surgery. Tons of shit that I got from God knows where. And that is the irresponsibility of celebrity when it comes to drugs and alcohol. That is
are we still talking about Miley?
That is that story is Miley Cyrus.
Okay. Everything has to be looked in the right perspective. And she is a person who has to go. She doesn't still have to go, but she had to go to that extreme to get people to forget about Hannah Montana. Okay. She didn't want to be Hannah Montana anymore, and the general public would not let her stop. So she had to do something so absolutely opposite and extreme that people completely forgot about Hannah Montana, and it worked. She's no longer this sweet Disney innocent girl. She's now this total fucking train wreck, slut whore, drug freak,
But
and she's happy. She's happy
then-
with that new reputation.
so, but did she have to go from Hannah Montana to Tony Montana? Like, was
Yes. Yes. That's just the way the world works. That's the
All
way
right.
he would. When was the last thing you heard about Hannah Montana? Nothing. Had she not gone to that extreme, people would still be calling her Hannah Montana, and all these other, little girls would just still be idolizing her. She had to get away from it. So, I mean, that's like I said, everything is relative to the situation.
But do you agree with that, with her method of having accomplished that goal?
Yeah. I mean, it was all part of their publicity. Same thing with Justin Bieber. He's trying to get away from that little boy look and getting all covered with tattoos and driving cars and doing stupid shit, so that he's trying to make himself to look like a badass, and that backfired.
Sure.
So now he's now he's letting people do a roast. You heard about the roast?
They're gonna do a Justin Bieber roast.
It already happened. Yeah, he let all of the other celebrities just totally shred him to pieces, and he sat there and took it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so he gained a little bit of respect from the general public and from the rest of the music industry because of doing that. So everything comes around.
Well, and I look at it too, and you do look at some kid stars, and it's hard, and I don't have any concept of what it would be like to be a celebrity at a young age and then try to get away from that kid, the mentality that everybody has of you, that you're this cookie cutter kid that goody two shoes or whatever, and maybe you're not really that person as you've gotten older. I don't know what that's like, but I do have an idea of what that's like when, and most people do, because when you look at maybe extended family in your life, and you spent time with your extended family when you were a kid, and you were always on your best behavior, and you were always polite and respectful, and I don't know about you, but even when I was drinking, I wouldn't drink in front of my parents or my grandparents. Like it was a I don't know, I just didn't feel comfortable drinking alcohol in front of my parents. And what's strange is I remember the very first time that I ever had an alcoholic beverage in front of my mother, and I remember it vividly because I felt very uncomfortable by it. So when I think of a celebrity who's known as the, goody two-shoes Hannah Montana, trying to get away from that persona, I look at it and say, well, you have those choices. You can jump headfirst into the deep end of adulthood and do stupid shit and stay in the public eye, or you could maybe take some of that money that you've made, step out of the spotlight for a little while, be a grown-up away from the cameras and the flashbulbs, and come back as a grown-up. You know who did that? What's that Anna Paquin chick did that. She was a child star. And the Lord of the Rings guy, Elijah Wood, he was a child star, and he never went cuckoo bananas.
Well,
Michelle Trachtenberg, I got to give a major call out to her. She was in front of the camera since she's been like 3 years old, and she still is, and she's never gone off the deep end or anything. So,
but do you still see her as a little kid?
Depends on what I'm watching. If I'm watching Buffy, then yeah, she's like in her teens. But if I'm watching a different movie, then she's older. But either way,
no, that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. What I'm saying is, if you were a fan of Elijah Wood from Radio Flyer years, and he was the kid, with the tortoise and the Radio Flyer, and now you see him as like whatever Frodo Baggins or whatever the hell his name is, and do you still see him as little blue-eyed Elijah Wood when he was a kid, or Elijah fucking Wood. This guy's a badass actor. Like, good for him. He's a grown-up now. I think
That
maybe.
second one.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, and regardless of how I would see someone, really, that is on me. You know, that is really on my perception of them. I mean, they don't really have much of a control over that because, again, their childhood was pretty much documented on film. You know, it was pretty much, we see that all throughout their life. And really, but again, what we see of them is totally, you know, we're limited to our perception by what we see. So.
You're so much smarter than me.
I just use big words.
What about the Olsen twins? There's a good.
What are they up to these days? I mean,
Olsen train whack. I wish one of them would die just so that I could tell them apart. Oh wait, what?
ouch.
Wow.
Well, I mean, as far as, you know, a child star needing to do something, you know, wild out there and crazy, they could just do what all the other cool kids are doing these days, which is, you know, going over to Iraq and joining ISIS and becoming total fucking crazy people over there.
Yeah.
That would be, you know, that will change your image.
Or bath salts.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it too.
Yep. They could move to Florida and start smoking spice. Apparently that would be insane. So
yes.
So then you look at somebody like a Drew Barrymore.
There you go.
Child star, got out of acting almost completely after her childhood. Kind of turned into a train wreck, but more privately because it was pre-social media. Who knows how it would have been if social media were a thing back then. But then came back and has a solid career as an actor. Like her or not as an actor, she went from, you know, cookie cutter child star, goody two shoes, to holy train wreck, to, hey, I'm an actual legitimate Hollywood star. I think that's a pretty cool story, and I don't see why a Lindsay Lohan, you know, couldn't have done the same thing. Like, I think she was just getting bad advice. She's got some gnarly parents, that Lindsay Lohan, apparently. Like, alcoholic mom, psycho dad, taking all her money and all that shit. And she's had a rough go at it, that Lindsay Lohan.
I think it's something with. It's got to be something with Disney, man. Okay, you look at Britney Spears, you look at Justin Bieber, you look at Lindsay Lohan, you look at, you know, who was the other one? Miley Cyrus. I mean, all these people we're talking about came from Disney.
Yeah.
Just saying.
No, that's an interesting point. You know who didn't get screwed up from Disney? Christina Aguilera.
Yeah, she actually she made it through.
Pretty cool.
Yep, I love her.
Whoa, what was that? That was weird. Oh, Robinson, camera one, camera two,
one, camera two.
camera two.
Yeah,
Camera
I
three?
have two cameras. I thought I'd put
Wow.
one better one up.
How the hell are you doing that?
I can't tell you.
It's the magic of the internet, ladies and gentlemen. So,
But Drew Barrymore was an alcoholic at the age of 9. She had to go to rehab at 9. I think she had some like celebrity record for that.
wow.
Yeah.
What the hell do you drink at 9?
Nobody knew she was drinking. She was started at 8, but no one knew she was an alcoholic until she was 9. And that was all. That's all because of, you know, all the shit she was doing, just being treated like a grown-up, so she acted like a grown-up.
Yep. Because it wasn't like wine coolers sneaking out of her mom's refrigerator. She was like drinking rye and, you know, bourbon neat wild
I don't
turkey
know what
on
she
the
was
rocks.
drinking.
Yeah. I mean, I see these commercials right now on Hulu. Hulu's got this advertisement running for this like can of something called like, you know, Misty Breeze or something, and it's some ridiculous slightly carbonated alcohol beverage, which is our generation's wine cooler. Let's be honest. Like, all of these malt liquor beverages that are out there. You know, Mike's Hard Lemonade and Twisted
Yeah.
Iced Tea and all that
The
weird
Buzzball is the new big thing.
Buzzball.
Yeah, it's about the size of a baseball, and it's like got a twist off top. And I don't know. There's a lot of fucking alcohol in that thing.
I bet.
You drink one, and you're just like, I don't know. You're lit. You're pretty lit. So
Huh.
a lot of sugar, a lot of alcohol, and
Yeah.
in a small package.
And probably a shit ton of caffeine.
I don't know.
That's weird. Well, I remember. So I remember Sparks.
Yeah,
The
the first caffeinated beer.
Well, and then they were gonna ban the alcohol energy drinks because people were killing themselves with them somehow. And the Four Loko, remember that controversy? Four Loko, people were drinking these 32-ounce cans of Four Loko and pounding 3 of them because they tasted sweet. They tasted like a soda pop, and you don't realize how drunk you're getting. But hey, man, my nightly recipe when I was living back in Oakland, for a period of time when I was balls to the wall drinking booze, was 2 sugar-free Sparks and a 40-ounce of whatever. It was a High Life, Miller High Life, and 2 Sparkses, and then I'd go to sleep. And yeah.
I like Smirnoff Ice. That's just me.
Robinson liked Zima.
I remember that shit.
See, so that would be this new, Misty Breeze drink is the Zima of 2015.
Zima.
Apparently they don't make Zima anymore.
Come on.
They don't. It's gone.
Great.
It was delicious. It had a weird flavor. Let's be honest. It was
just lemonade to me. As far as I can tell.
It had a sort of almost like a Jägermeister black licorice sort of flavor to it, and it was weird. It was a weird drink, and it always had this weird stigma that dudes couldn't drink Zima, and I don't understand that. To me, that's like saying a dude can't drink an appletini. Whatever, drink what you
Okay.
like.
I remember that. Yeah, it's a girl thing.
It's a girl. Oh, girls drink
It's like
Zima.
you got to drink Guinness beer or bourbon. You can't
If you're a
drink,
man.
a wine cooler.
Yep.
That's what you give to teenage girls when you want to get laid.
Exactly. That and Boone's Farm.
Boone's Farm. Yeah, that's what I grew up with. Boone's Farm. Strawberry Hill.
Perfect.
It's good shit.
Yep.
It worked.
Okay, celebrities.
Well, this is all about celebrities.
That's probably what Drew
Celebrities.
Barrymore was drinking
Yeah,
too.
she was drinking Boone's Farm, and
And
what's
everybody
that?
thought it was Kool-Aid.
What's that shit that Chaz, you and Rachel used to drink in a big champagne-looking bottle?
Well, we don't
Cisco.
always drink. No, we don't always drink Martinelli's with Everclear.
No, that's disgusting.
Mm.
It came in a big old ugly bottle, and it was
Cisco.
no, it was
No?
some terrible, weird wine champagne stuff. God damn it! Why can't I think of what it is?
Because you've been
With an
drinking.
S? It was Italian.
It wasn't Cyclone, was it?
Who? Say it again.
Cyclone?
No. It wasn't
Asti Spumante.
well, it was
Martini
it
and
was
Rossi.
It was a disgusting champagne-ish sort of beverage. And anyway, you know what'll happen? We're gonna start talking about something else.
Yeah, and it'll come back.
Randomly, it's gonna come to my mind, and I'm just gonna shout it out and scare everybody.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because that's how my brain works.
I cannot remember.
Oh, when I say it, you're gonna go, oh.
Yeah.
I mean, they still make it. You can still get it in the shit section of the liquor store. It's a big bottle, and you
Right
run
next
around-
to Mad Dog 2020.
probably, but it wasn't malt
Or
liquor.
Mataschewitz.
really sweet, disgusting, sparkling wine. Like, ugh, so bad. Oh well.
Oh,
Yeah.
we'll remember later.
Yeah. So I wanted to spend a few minutes at least talking about the gossipy side of addiction and recovery with celebrity in some of my favorite, your favorite, whomever's favorite celebrity recovery, rehab, whatever. Your favorite ones, like your success stories, the ones that you could use to encourage an alcoholic or a drug addict to, get sober like so and so did. And one of my favorite ones that always comes to mind is Robert Downey Jr. Because that guy was a mess. Like, holy shitballs, that guy was a mess. I mean, I think the guy got pulled over and arrested for cocaine possession like a dozen times. And he'd get thrown in jail for a little while, then he'd promise to do better, and then he'd get busted for the exact same thing, like days later. And then he'll do rehab and I'll do better. I promise, Judge Wapner, I'll do better. And then, 72 hours later, boom, picked up in Malibu for cocaine possession, driving drunk. Shit.
Less Than Zero. He was living his character. Was that him?
I don't know. Less Than Zero.
Less Than Zero. There was a film called Less Than Zero where he played a guy who was so strung out on drugs that he was sucking dick to get some more coke.
Woo!
Robert Downey Jr.
All right.
It was one of the Brat Pack films.
Was Robert Downey Jr. a Brat Packer? No.
Yes, he was. Absolutely.
I thought it was Rob Lowe. Anyway.
I'm thinking of Rob Lowe, not Robert Downey Jr.
Aha! They look.
My bad.
No, it's all right. Hey, I still can't think of the name of that goddamn wine. So Robert Downey Jr. busted rehab, busted relapse, busted again. Was signed on to do a movie and got busted and got canned from doing this movie and lost a bunch of money, and everybody's laughing at him, just wondering what the hell's the matter with you. And then cleans up his act, finally decides he'd had enough, goes to rehab, gets clean, stays clean, and now he's fucking Iron Man.
Yeah.
So if that's one of my favorite stories, and I wish I had some better, specifics about it, but I'm not sure that the specifics really matter all that much. But that guy was hard up in it, man. He was, to be busted that many times, you either think you are above the law, and at the time, let's be honest, Robert Downey Jr. was not Iron Man, right? He wasn't mega super $20 million a film actor guy. He was, whatever. He was a B-lister, maybe, if you want to go that far. And so, did he think he was on top of the world and untouchable at the time? I don't know. I wasn't there. But to get busted and relapse that many times, at least to me, I'm thinking this guy was deep in the shit. So
yeah, Corey Feldman too.
Yeah.
Oh no shit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, both of those Corys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then which one died?
Haim.
Haim.
I think it was Corey Haim.
So the other Corey.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what Feldman's doing these days. I don't know what the fuck he's doing.
Well, he apparently got cleaned up. Like, that was part of that whole show that they did together. The two Corys was that they got cleaned up, but then the other Corey fell back off the wagon. And I think part of the reason was that who the hell was that guy? Like, so you're also Corey, but you're not Corey Feldman, so who gives a shit? How much would it suck to be known as the other Corey?
Yeah, well, that's the Corey Feldman. Corey Feldman's father was a very, very well-known casting director. So when Corey was a child, so that's how he ended up becoming famous. Because the other Corey just happened to be his friend.
Well, and was he an actor also?
Well, they kind of grew up in the same neighborhood and acting together, and they just kind of both had the same thing going because they hung out with each other so much.
Got it.
So it's just by chance that had Corey Haines not lived in that neighborhood that Corey Feldman lived in or gone to school with him, he probably never would have become a famous actor because he wasn't a very good actor.
Yeah.
Well, neither one
And
of them.
apparently not a very good drug user either.
Yeah.
First rule of drug using: don't die.
Yeah, that's when it's not fun anymore.
But it's also not fun when you think you're dying. I happen to know firsthand experience.
Making little adjustments here. Hang on.
That's all right. Robinson was there actually the first time that I ever smoked the pot, and it was not a pretty picture.
It was funny. It was very funny, I have to admit.
To you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a moment. It was one of those moment things.
I know. I'll never forget it for the rest of my life.
And it was also the first time that Sabina, my daughter, ever smoked weed. And that was kind of like the whole purpose of the event was so that, she could, like, do it with some... Because I can't smoke weed, as you know.
He thought she would be safer smoking weed for the first time with me, and I firmly believe she would have been much safer smoking weed for the first time with somebody who knew what the hell they were doing, because I thought I was going to die. And of course, Robinson, being the good friend that he is, when I came to him in a panic, thinking that I was dying, and I felt like my heart was pounding out of my chest, I asked him very honestly, I'm trying to stay calm, but I think I'm dying, and I go to Robinson and I say, dude, feel my heart. And I'm expecting him to be a good friend and say, no, man, come on, you're cool, just sit down. And so he puts his hand on my heart and he says, oh my God!
You're dead.
I just remember my reaction is that if he's freaking out, then it must be really bad. So then he just says, you're fine, you idiot. Go sit down. You're not dying. Shut up. And this was my first experience. And one of the last experiences with marijuana, mind you, because I do not like it, Sam I am. I never have. And,
but when time stopped for you, you decided you were just going to go to sleep, and then like hours went by, and the clock for like 2 hours or something, the clock didn't move, and you finally got up and came out, and it was like 2 minutes later.
No. It was less than 1 minute later. And I thought it had been, I was laying in that bed staring at that clock for hours. And I came out and I said, Robinson, dude, something's wrong, bro. He's like, what? What's the matter?
Time
like,
broken.
I don't know. But I was just, I'm laying in there trying to go to sleep. Like, it's been, I don't know how long, but the numbers on the clock aren't moving. And he's like, really? Really? Maybe that's because you've been in there for 30 seconds. And then the best part was that my roommate came home. And again, first time that I had ever smoked the pot. My roommate came home, and I, for some reason, in my like panicked, paranoid state, I had decided that he could not know that this happened.
And
like,
he didn't, did he?
Well, I was adamant that he was not allowed to know that this happened. So I tell Robinson, don't tell him. I tell Sabina, don't tell him. And I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm like, holy shit, he's going to know. Like, he's totally going to know. This is bad. He's
in your mind.
Know.
Yeah.
In my mind, right? And then I'm sitting there just like, I remember like clenching my teeth together, trying to be like, all right, just act normal. Act normal. Don't lead on. And he's talking to me. He's like, hey, man, how was your night? Oh, whatever. How was your work? Whatever. He was coming back from work. And I'm looking at him, and I look over at Robinson like with just my eyes, right? And I'm like looking at him, and I'm like, oh, and I just start laughing, and he's like, what the fuck? What is going on with you? And I just like, but I'm really stoned. and he's like, wait, what? I'm so confused right now. And then everybody started smoking pot, and it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It was terrible. It was awful. My god. But it was a story, and I've been telling that story for like the last 15 years because it's still funny to this day. So I could only imagine if I had been a celebrity.
I'm not sure, but I think that was the same weekend that I fell asleep with a mouthful of ramen.
Yes, it was on the floor.
Because I had shown up at your house like so late. Everyone had been at party, and I showed up. I was hungry. I went in your kitchen. I made some ramen. I sat down.
Oh no!
I started eating it.
You didn't make some ramen, Robinson. You made a pot, like a stock pot. Full
I did.
Of ramen.
I did.
I think he made like 5 or 10 packages of ramen.
It was 2 packages. It just swelled up and looked like a lot. But I didn't really so much fall asleep as I did have an episode, because I literally was like with a mouthful. I mean, like hanging out of my mouth, pot in one hand, fork in the other hand. That's how I woke up the next morning.
Right. Dry ramen.
Not even laying down, but
out of
still
his face.
sitting there with a pot in one hand and the coagulated grease from the ramen on the top of the inside of my mouth was just like the worst. I couldn't brush it off with the toothbrush. It was just horrible. So yeah, I never fall asleep. And you'd think that someone would choke.
Yeah.
On a mouthful of ramen, but I just sat there with it in my mouth. I guess I breathed through my nose or something, but
this is a true story, ladies and gentlemen. This all happened in one night.
Yeah. It was an epic night.
It was. Because I think it was the same night that we decided.
It was a night that lasted about 2 weeks.
Right. Because I think that was the same night that we decided that we were gonna try to be criminals too. Like we were.
Oh well, yeah. It was.
We can't talk about that story on the air, but we all decided that we were gonna turn criminal, and it didn't work out very well. Not because we got busted, but because the amount of risk that we took for little payoff that we ended up with. But we were all very excited by this event. Maybe someday we'll tell the story and we can like blur my face and put like a voice thing on my voice. Yes, I don't have a real name. I can't do that modulation sound. So
I'm in the middle of a radio show.
Hey, we're in the middle of a radio show.
Oh, is that music still going?
Yes, it's still.
Oh man, you need to go over there and pull the plug. The radio, the music is still going with the bouncy house. What it's like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, it is 1 o'clock in the morning, and I highly doubt that it is children in that bouncy house anymore, Robinson.
I think there is.
It has probably been commandeered by the adults. What was
You
it?
know, I think we should
Buzzball?
just call the police and make a noise complaint. An hour ago. An hour ago. Okay. Well,
The buzzball. It got them.
all right. Is it break time?
It can be. It is. For those that are listening, I know that tonight has been a little less than topic centric, but we told you we were just going to try to have a show that was fun and lighthearted, talking about gossip and celebrities, and apparently some funny stories about ourselves, because we are human beings first. And even though I don't do drugs and I don't use alcohol anymore, I certainly used to, and that is a true story. So, this is the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. You're listening live on Radio Valencia and streaming to you on the YouTube. Sober Happy Hour, SoberHappyHour.com. You can send us an email, soberhappyhour@gmail.com. You can like us on Facebook. Please leave us a comment on Facebook or on our website as well. And if you have a moment, subscribe to the podcast in iTunes or your favorite podcast application. Just search Sober Happy Hour. You'll find it. No big deal. We're going to take a little break.
And I want to say for those of you who are watching the show, because you got a link from me or somebody, then during this break, copy and paste that link into your Facebook or your Twitter or whatever to other people, anybody that might think that this is a funny or stupid or interesting show, and
Yeah.
We need.
Thank you.
Yeah, we just need a few more viewers, listeners.
We love our listeners. We love our viewers now that we're apparently streaming live on the internet. I promise I'll wear a nicer shirt next time. Basically, I'm in my pajamas.
Be
What
yourself.
What do you want me to say?
It's morning, whatever. Okay.
That's right. It's the middle of the night. So we're gonna play a little tune for you, and take a little break. If you guys
5
can
minutes.
mute your microphones, and we will be back with the second half of the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast right after this. Right after this. Yes, and it is playing.
There we go. All right. I'm going to get another beer. Mm-hmm.
All right. That was our break song. And I realized that the people watching on YouTube heard absolutely nothing at all. So they literally just saw the three of us looking at our computers in front of the camera, but saying and doing nothing.
That's interesting. Okay, there's a way around that. There's a way around that.
I realized that halfway through. I should be able to share a song with the YouTube stream via a little button here, and then you would be able to hear that music as well.
The YouTube video button, right? Where you can go.
No. Uh-oh.
No?
We don't want to do that. That's a bad idea. No, it's the share. Like, I think you just drag and drop it into the window. But if you do that, I warn you, we did it once before, and I lost everything. So we'll have to play with that another time.
Okay.
I have a lot of fear, for a good reason, let's be honest. Last week was a good example of why that fear exists. And I think we recovered well, though, from some of our last week's early technical difficulties. So you are listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio podcast on radiovalencia.fm and some fancy FM radio station in San Francisco. How did you get here? Well, you either downloaded the podcast by searching Sober Happy Hour on iTunes or your favorite podcast application, or you clicked through the live link on Facebook and you're watching us on the YouTube, or perhaps, apparently, this will be available on YouTube as well as a recorded show.
Yes,
video?
But you can edit out that stupid part in the middle.
That stupid part of silence in the middle. Anybody that tuned in during that was just like,
Apparently, YouTube has some very good online editing tools for taking care of all that, which you'll find out soon enough, since you're a video editor already.
Right. That was many years ago. It was in a previous life. But shoot us an email, soberhappyhour@gmail.com. Or pop on over to our website at soberhappyhour.com. We have a soberhappyhour.com email address. I just can never remember what it is, so I never feel comfortable giving it out.
Really? It's not like soberhappyhour@gmail.com?
Well, no. We have a soberhappyhour.com email address. I think it's like podcast@soberhappyhour or host@soberhappyhour. And I could make you guys a Robinson@SoberHappyHour or Chaz@SoberHappyHour email address if you'd like one. Happy to do that. Just forward to your regular email address. But
that would make me feel like a real celebrity.
Well, let's do it then, because then you can use drugs and be a public train wreck. And then we could, then we could talk about you on the air.
I have actually had a few of my friends in Vietnam, but I only talk to them online and, through Viber and whatever. I've had a few of them ask me if I'm famous.
Well, and the answer is yes, of course I'm famous.
I'm world famous in my own living room.
In your own world.
Yes.
Well, interesting story about that. So, at my wedding, when I got married to my lovely wife, Rachel, nobody in my sort of Arizona family friends circle really knew at the time who Robinson was. So
that was the first time I had met any of your friends there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
wedding.
The only people that knew Robinson were like my immediate family. Like my sisters, my mother, my father, and a couple of my friends who were there from California. But outside of that, nobody knew who this guy was. And, I mean, obviously they knew his name. I would talk about him all the time. But I would imagine that they assumed somebody totally different. Because Robinson and I have been best friends for many, many years, but we're very different people. And he shows up to my wedding with a blonde, beautiful blonde girl with him. And he's got long black dreadlocks at the time, and he's wearing a leather jacket, and like as dressed up as Robinson gets in his own very unique style of looking snazzy, but still in a leather jacket, and probably I think leather pants as well. So people thought he was somebody, right? They couldn't place it. They didn't know exactly who he was, but they knew he was somebody famous. And what I love about
I've always been told that I have a familiar face.
right. So they
So
just
I kinda
assume that he's a famous person, he's a friend of mine, and he came to the wedding, and and he's with a good-looking blonde, so of course he's a famous guy. He's here with his arm candy, whatever. And my favorite part of the story, though, is that Robinson totally played along with it.
Well, you have to also consider a couple of other things. Like one, there was a famous film star there, Jessica Campbell.
This is true.
Okay, and your wife that you're marrying also knows probably one of the biggest rock stars in the world at the time.
Amen.
Right. So and this is kind of little things that people know. So you are kind of surrounded by these world-class celebrities already. So that kind of added to the whole mystique of it. But I remember a couple of people coming up to me, just like coming straight up to me, the first time anybody approached me. And I didn't quite understand why nobody would approach me in the first place. But when somebody finally came up to me and they said, "We know you're someone famous, but we don't know who you are. Could you tell us who you are?" And what I said was, "Well, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you." And I just walked away. I totally played it off.
Yep.
And I left them standing there with their mouths hanging open, going, "Fuck.
Yep.
Who is he?" It was great.
And the best part was
great.
that people were coming up to me after and like emailing me or calling or texting or whatever people did 8 or 9 years ago, and with the same question. All right, who is the guy with the dreadlocks? And because Robinson had shared with me how he had played into the game, I continued it for as long as I could and just said, well, come on, like, I want to respect his privacy too. Like, if you don't know who he is, I don't need you, like, adding him on Facebook or something like that. So we'll just leave it at that. And and it was fun. It was a lot of fun because Robinson used to hang out with me when, for whatever reason at the time, the band Incubus was very popular, and everywhere I went, the way I wore my hair or whatever it was at the time, but for a good year and a half, if I went somewhere that could have been considered like a celebrity hangout type place, downtown Huntington Beach or something like that, people would think that I was Brandon Boyd. Not that I looked like him, but that I was him. And I had a good friend at the time who was like this big 6'5" big guy. So I think it just kind of added to it. Here I am, this little guy in skinny jeans with this big huge guy following me around everywhere. So that just kind of added to the idea.
Your bodyguard.
Right, must have been the bodyguard. So same situation, but I would play into it as well. Like I absolutely played it. It was the closest thing I ever came to being a celebrity. So it was a lot of fun.
And then the road trips that we would take.
Oh yeah.
Going to in and out. High school
Sonic.
kids on their lunch break or whatever. And then we put on a British accent just to make things a little bit more interesting.
Fun times. Fun times.
Yeah.
People would just assume we were somebody famous because if you carry yourself like a famous person and you're a little bit odd, you just look a little different, you act a little different, I don't know. It's just it's a strange world of celebrity in general, which is why I think you look at somebody like Paris Hilton, who doesn't know how to do anything other than spend money on shit, becomes a celebrity because she got good at spending money publicly and gets a TV show. Hey,
Make
everybody.
a scene of it, yeah.
Yeah. So, and you look at it too. The best thing that ever happened to her weird celebrity career was, oops, my sex tape leaked.
Yeah.
Dad, and the drinking and the partying and the, getting paid to show up at parties. Like, that's a really bizarre thing to me. Celebrities get paid.
Been around for a long time, though.
Yeah, getting paid thousands of dollars to show up at a party. That's just weird. That's a form of prostitution, for Christ's sake. Like, let's be honest. You are whoring yourself out at that point.
I had this idea that I never got to implement, but I was going to take a person, actually I wanted to do this with Sabina when she was just turning 18. I wanted to, because she would do makeup really well, and she could do a Russian accent. I wanted to literally have a group of paparazzis standing on a sidewalk in front of a club, and have a limousine pull up with her getting out of it, and have them just pop, 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 taking pictures of her, and her just speaking with some weird accent, a Russian accent, and going up to the door and just waiting for everybody else to go, who is that? And then I don't know what, I didn't think any further than that, but to do
it ends
that
up online, and then
a couple of weeks in a row where she
Yeah.
just keeps showing up, and then everybody's just like, who is that? Who is that? And then see if it's possible to make someone an it girl by having pseudo paparazzis, and the other paparazzis are like, wait, well, they're taking pictures of her, then we have to take pictures of her too. We have to find out who this person is, and then creating some weird backstory.
which is,
I don't know if it would work.
think, exactly.
And then she could become an alcoholic or a drug addict
right, and then
for even more publicity.
and then we won't get into the sex tape thing because that's your daughter.
No.
Yeah,
That's
that's a step too far. But I'm pretty sure that's exactly how Kim Kardashian became famous.
probably, yeah.
And because
That's how Prince made himself famous.
oh really?
Yeah, he would hire a limousine. I mean, of course, great costumes. He didn't buy them; he made them.
Right.
And there was another guy too.
I'm sure
I
that
can't remember who this guy was. This guy would rent a limousine, pull up to a big celebrity, a big famous club that was, one of those clubs that had more people on the outside trying to get in than it had on the inside partying, right?
we'll say Studio 54.
Right, Studio 54, Limelight kind of studio places, and he would pull up in a limousine, and he'd walk right up to the doorman, and he would say, I need to speak to the owner. I want to buy this club right now. And then, of course, they get him in there, get him into the VIP room, and buying him drinks. And the guy, all he ever had to pay for was the limousine.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So, and he did this all over the place, and he never had any money. He just put on the right attitude. But Prince, he did the same thing. He had the attitude, he had the clothes, he had the just the presence, and he would pull up in a limousine, and nobody knew who he was. But when somebody pulls up to a club in a limousine,
Yep.
and the doorman gets out and opens the door, and nobody comes out for 2 or 3 minutes. What everyone's like, what's going on? What's going on? And then he would finally get out, and it would be like, ta-da! This great big, grandiose kind of entrance that he would just make an entrance every time he would go out, but he would rarely go out, and those are the kind of things that made him famous.
I'm sure that being a virtuoso at about a dozen instruments probably helped a little bit.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but he designed his sets, he designed his clothes, he designed his own fucking guitar.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if he built it himself, but he definitely designed it. I mean, this guy is just everything across the board. He is a very self-made man.
And apparently a
respect.
very good basketball player as well.
Yes.
Being 5'2"
Yes.
inches tall, I'm not sure how
Like
that's even
kicking
possible.
ass.
But
what was it? It was
it was the Chappelle Show.
no, yeah, it was Murphy's brother. It was Eddie
Charlie
Murphy's
Murphy.
Charlie Murphy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charlie Murphy. And then,
Charlie
and then
Murphy.
he made everybody
Telling that
pancakes.
story.
Yep. And so I find it interesting when we talk about musicians specifically that there's always with actors it doesn't seem as prevalent, but with musicians, drugs and alcohol has just sex, drugs, and rock and roll, like they go hand in hand. And you have
Diamond Dave.
well, or
Perfect example.
Eric Clapton,
David Lee Roth.
The guys from the Rolling Stones. I mean, people still think to this day that Keith Richards is a heroin junkie, and maybe he is. I don't know. I mean, he says he's not, but it definitely fried his brain. All the drugs that he used to do. This is not a normal person anymore. If you hear him speak in interviews, but
right, or Ozzy Osbourne.
Right. Well, and Ozzy famously continues his battle with drug and alcohol addiction. I mean, he's relapsed ever since that Osbourne's show. You know, he was apparently still using in the middle of that show being taped and was just hiding it. And it was
hiding
crazy.
it very well. He had brain damage.
Right. People thought he was brain damaged, but in reality he was still drunk and high.
Yeah.
And but then you see somebody like a Steven Tyler, who was into drugs because he was in a rock band, right? And it was just came with the territory. Taking heroin and cocaine and drinking a lot was just part of that, 1970s, 1980s rock star persona.
Right.
But gets clean, starts a family, and continues to be a rock star, has sort of a resurgence in the 1990s, and has maintained it ever since with Aerosmith. They've never gone out of style. And then a handful of years ago has an accident while on tour and broke his foot or ankle or leg or something and had to have surgery. And obviously with the surgery, they had to prescribe him pain medication, and he was a recovering heroin addict, and they prescribe him the pain medication. He's working it out with his doctors. Obviously they're well aware of his past and whatever, and they're trying to control it. He even has a program set up where he's not in control of his own pain medication, but finds himself knee deep in it again, where he's got multiple doctors prescribing the pain pills, and he's abusing the pain pills. But he comes out very publicly just a couple of weeks later saying, I relapsed on the pain medication. I need help. I'm going to check myself back into rehab, and I'm going to start the clock all over again. I was sober for 25 years, and I'm hitting the reset button because I gotta get cleaned up again. And I respect the hell out of that, because Robin Williams kind of tells a similar story with his alcoholism, where he was just crazy into drugs and alcohol during his comedy days, the Mork and Mindy years, and got cleaned up, was sober for some 20 years, and was shooting a film up in Canada, and for some reason he was telling this story during one of his comedy acts a couple years ago. For some reason, he's walking down the streets of Toronto and decides today would be a really good day to have a drink. So he goes
to have a drink.
Right, it's always one drink. So he goes into a liquor store and convinces himself that buying the little single shot bottles of vodka that's better than buying, a fifth of vodka and drinking that. So the little bottles were gonna make sure he didn't, fall off the wagon completely. And so I'm gonna drink these little bottles, and I should be okay. And he told the story, and I'm not gonna do it any justice, but after a couple of days, he finds himself walking down the streets of Toronto with pockets full of these empty little bottles of vodka, saying that he must have sounded like a fucking wind chime or something, walking around with these things tinking around in his pockets. Empty bottles of vodka, just wasted out of his mind, until he realized one day that, holy shit, I have to check myself back into rehab. This is no good. And he did, and he got cleaned up again. And Chaz has something to say, but a lot of people don't know that Robin Williams, when he committed suicide, did not commit suicide because of drugs and alcohol. A lot of people just jump to that conclusion, oh, he must have relapsed and he was depressed because of it and he took his own life. The truth of it is, this is a man who had relapsed multiple times. That's not the end of the world to somebody like that. He knew how to get sober, and it was sober at one point in time for more than 20 years. This was a man who was severely depressed and was not seeking treatment for that depression. And you mix that sort of personality with depression, and then apparently he had received some news about the early onset of Parkinson's disease. It was too much for him, and he didn't have the support that he needed to get through it, and he thought it better to leave this earth. So very sad story, but I always liked his sounded like a wind chime walking down the streets of Toronto story, because that was clever way that addicts convince themselves that what they're doing is not bad. Oh, if I drink the little bottles, I'll be okay. But if I buy a big bottle, then we know it's trouble. Chaz, what did you have to say?
Well, I want to go back to what you said about Steven Tyler and his situation where, he was considered to relapse. And really, I think when it comes to reducing or even eliminating the stigma of addiction, his situation in which he went in for surgery and then was, prescribed pain medication, and thereafter, fell back into it, developed, or at least in his sense, redeveloped that addiction again, kind of serves as a reminder or an example to pretty much anyone who's so willing to condemn someone who has, been unfortunate enough to, fall into addiction, that it can happen to anyone, really. And that it can, through no fault of his own, going in for surgery and just as much as anyone else being prescribed pain medications, it can happen. And not necessarily simply because he had been in recovery before from addiction, but this could have been for anyone else, this could have been a whole new one. This could have been the first one. This really, that kind of situation really is one in which stigma, it's like you can't point fingers at that.
That stigma prevents people from getting and seeking help too, because it is much easier to just continue to take the drugs, and if you're getting it from a doctor or three, you can convince yourself that you're not doing anything wrong, and that's where all of the lying to one's self comes into play. I'm getting these from my doctor, I'm taking my prescription, I'm not hurting anyone other than myself. Like
justification.
Yep.
Justification.
You start justifying.
Yeah.
But when you get to the point, though, when you do realize that this is a problem, when it does become that full-blown addiction and everything else, and then you do admit that, yes, I know this is what has happened, this is what I need to do now. I really think that if you were to, point your finger, if people were to say, that's a character weakness, that's, he was morally inferior for this happening. No, it's not. This was a life situation. Medications, he was taking care of himself for all he knew, and here's what happened. It can happen to anyone. And
Well,
now he's going back in and he's,
Yeah.
taking care of it again.
yep.
It's called
And
being human, but then it's also being responsible.
and that personal responsibility aspect of it is critical. There was I know I've said multiple times on this show that I'm not a big fan of the show Intervention, um, simply because of some of the methods that they use to try and get people into recovery. But the show itself, I think, is a fantastic real life, chronicling of the really nasty kind of tail end of a lot of people's addictions, how bad it can get. So if you really want to see a really hard up, depraved addict, that show certainly depicts it well. Well, in the worst possible meaning of the term, depicting it well. But there was an episode that I saw of a girl who was suffering from some sort of muscular disorder. I don't think it was MS, um, but it was something with her muscles. And she was prescribed pain medicine because she was in just chronic pain. And she even walked strange because of it. You could tell just, taking a step was painful. And so she was on pain medication to help ease some of that pain. And you build up a tolerance. And she started taking more and more. I mean, to the point where she's being prescribed these fentanyl lollipops, like actual suckers that you suck on that have fentanyl in them to keep you heavily medicated. And her family is like railroading this chick, like calling her like you're a drug abuser and you're a worthless addict and she's on disability, she can't work because of this ailment or whatever. And I felt so bad for this girl because she didn't choose to suffer from this disease or whatever it was. So it did turn out, though, that her doctors weren't helping the situation by prescribing oodles of narcotic pain medicine to her. She didn't need nearly as much as what she was taking, and there were other forms of therapy that she could be involved with to help with the pain. And it ended up being a successful story, but this was somebody who literally thought she was simply doing what her doctors had prescribed. And that was the part that really kind of hit home for me, where it was like, damn, she didn't choose to use drugs. This wasn't her recreationally using, opiates or whatever. This was her taking her prescribed medication that started getting heavier and heavier and heavier as she built up more and more of a tolerance, to the point where, she's nodding off in the middle of the day because of the amount of the drugs that she was taking. But then the way that her family reacted, just like treating her like a piece of shit. And even if it were a choice, even if she had decided that she was going to be using these drugs by choice, and it started out as, weekend fun and turned into a daily habit or something, treating somebody like a worthless piece of crap because they are addicted to drugs, that's not helpful. Like, that isn't going to get somebody sober by treating them like they're a piece of shit. We need to have a little bit more compassion, a lot more compassion. We need to show some empathy. And I think that's where we kind of fail sometimes as a society with drug addicts and alcoholics, is we want to label them character flawed and they're weak, they have no willpower. I mentioned this before, the idea that you chose to be a drug addict or an alcoholic, that's ridiculous. Nobody chooses to be a drug addict or an alcoholic. So
Congratulations, Mrs. Crampton. You've just won $500 or a brand new television. What would you like? Well, I think I'll take the $500 and become an alcoholic.
Right.
Yeah, and people don't decide that.
No. And I still wish that there was a way to determine who might be predisposed to an addiction, but they've yet to
How
determine.
about everyone?
Well, I don't know, because I just don't know. I don't know. I see people who can party hard and then turn it off. I use you as an example all the time, Robinson. Like, you've certainly done your fair share of partying, and I've never seen it, grab you by the short and curlies and not let go. And I think it takes a certain personality to be like that, and I think it also takes a certain personality to not know when to or be able to stop. And it's not something that you choose. It is, unfortunately, something that just happens. And I think the same goes for celebrities.
I grew up in a white trash alcoholic neighborhood and just being, I don't know, I think it has a lot to do with just personal fear of getting caught up in something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I had a friend, good guy, is a tattoo artist, and worked in Newport Beach, California for a long time.
Wait. You're saying you had a friend?
I had.
What was that like?
A couple of friends. It was great.
I'm sorry. Go on.
That's all right. He knew. He was aware of my plans to move to San Francisco to go to school, and he told me that if I move to San Francisco, and if I come back home, and within a year, I hadn't, because at the time I was clean and sober, I just wasn't into the whole drug and alcohol scene at all. And he told me, if you come back in a year and you've not at least dabbled in drugs after being in San Francisco, I'll give you a big fat, tattoo piece for free. And I thought that was really strange at the time. I'm like, well, what the hell does moving to San Francisco have to do with anything?
You were like borderline straight edge at the time too.
Yeah, and I thought that was just a really strange little deal to make with someone. But I look back on it now and I go, holy shit! Like, was it a deal that he made specifically with me, or was it just that because he knew that the environment there, the lifestyle of living in that city, can take people by the balls really quickly, and sometimes without you even realizing that it's happening. And I think that it was interesting because my drug and alcohol use absolutely started while I lived in San Francisco, and it was just so prevalent. It was everywhere. It was the access was simple. You could just walk down the street and get whatever you wanted from any corner of the street downtown. And it was funny because he was so correct, and I'm a pretty competitive guy, and I certainly wanted to win that bet. But
yeah,
I'll be damned if I didn't. I certainly did not win that bet. And I just find that really interesting, that as strong as somebody thinks that they are, that's why I bring up the topic of predisposition, because was my decision to be really adamant that I wasn't going to use drugs or alcohol when I was a little bit younger, was that some sort of subconscious awareness of the fact that I could be pulled in to an addiction of one sort or another? I don't know. And maybe that's why I was so anti drugs and alcohol for so long, because maybe somewhere in the back of my mind I knew that if I got started, I wouldn't be able to stop on my own. I don't know.
Or maybe that tattoo artist knew that about you too.
Yeah.
But
Well,
my
what?
question is this. At what point during your recovery did that that conversation come back to you?
Well, what was interesting is, and I'm glad you asked that question, because that conversation came back into my mind all the time.
While you were in the middle of being high and drunk and
Absolutely.
stupid. And...
Yep. Even, I'll be honest, even like the first time I decided to try something new in terms of, drinking or using drugs, that conversation popped into my mind. And I just find it so interesting that if I had thought about it a little bit more, or given a little bit more, put a little bit more value on that conversation, I don't know, maybe I would have made different decisions. But it is interesting because it was such a casual little conversation between two people that happened so many years ago that I remember it so well, because at the time I could not comprehend where it was coming from. But the fact that I'm still talking about it now, to this day, 13, 14 years later, it's just a little bit bizarre that I didn't even know him that well. It's not like this was a really good friend of mine that knew me better than I knew myself and wanted to try to protect me from something. It was more that this was a guy that had probably seen countless people, make a move to a big city and end up, wrapped up in drugs and alcohol. I don't know. It was weird. So, Chaz, what do you think? Do you think that people are predisposed to be
like
drug addicts or
just about every
alcoholics?
having a drink or what's that?
I think that really a lot of it can also depend on situations. Um, how often is are drugs or anything else available in a person's house? How much do the people around them use? Um, what kind of how are drugs and everything else seen in a person's life, in a person's culture? There's just so much more that goes into it than just anything that would be a physical or medical predisposition to it. There's just so many different things that I think, like, even when it comes to mental illness, looking for one specific thing, one specific gene, or any given cause like that is just going to be absolutely fruitless. It's not going to get anyone anywhere. I think simply that why does one person develop an addiction and another person doesn't? I really couldn't tell you, but what I would have to say is that you have to look at the totality of that person's life, where they are at that given point when they develop the addiction, what's in their life, what isn't in their life also, what kind of supports don't they have. There's just a... Go ahead.
What about the idea that my uh, genetics, right? If your father or mother is or was an alcoholic, does that make you more predisposed to be an alcoholic yourself? I mean, there's a lot of conversation that goes on about that. We've been talking about celebrities, and is Lindsay Lohan a raging alcoholic because her parents are? I don't know.
Well, for one thing, that's when you look at that, like that kind of intergenerational addictions and alcoholism, you're not just looking at genetics, you're also looking at a continuity of family relationships. In other words, let's say that going back 3 generations, they're alcoholics. That means that you have alcoholism, you have alcohol itself present in the family. You have these things that have become norms. You have alcoholism as a normative thing in these people's lives now coming down through generations. So There could be a genetic factor, or it could just be a continual presence of alcoholism and alcohol and other factors going into it, such as poverty or depression, any other number of things, and none of them having to do with genetics.
Huh. Well, but do you think, and this is just an opinion question, is it possible that genetics play a role in it?
Oh, absolutely, yes. It is definitely possible. But what I'm saying is that only looking at genetics in terms of intergenerational alcoholism and addiction isn't very helpful. You have to look at genetics and X, Y, and Z.
Got it. What about you, Robinson? What do you think?
I think learned socialization has a lot to do with it. I think that I know that I have one brother that died from not alcohol, but from heroin abuse, and I have basically everybody in my family is an alcoholic. I mean, everybody except for my mother, but everybody in her family, all of her siblings are all alcoholics. So it's like there's just this very strong genetic disposition. And I don't think that it passed me by. I think I probably have that ability, but something happened to me socially when I was young that changed my way of looking at everything and the way I look at myself and my need to be present and sober all the time. I think that has just overpowered any genetic predisposition.
I like that. I think
I could be wrong. It's just how I feel about it.
no, and I think the interesting part of that conversation is that we simply don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
And I think to Chaz's point, if we did know, we would do something about it.
well, I'd also like to kind of say that, to kind of caution against only looking at genetic things, because it's almost as if we can say, oh, it's my genes, or oh, it's their genes, it almost takes any responsibility off of, oh, maybe we need to change what we're doing. Maybe we need to reassess our values.
Totally.
Because if it's suddenly now something having to do with the family's, culture, let's say like specific ethnicities where alcohol is a huge presence in that ethnic culture, wow, why would you want to give that up? That's our heritage. Why on earth would you want to give up alcohol?
Yeah.
God forbid that it actually makes people take responsibility and look at themselves and their behavior and their norms and their values even, and say, hey, maybe this isn't working for us.
Very cool. So we're winding down here. It is we got a few minutes left in the show, and I wanted to mention, and I've been trying to find this article for a long time now, and I can't remember. I want to say it was an issue of Vibe magazine, but I can't be certain. And don't laugh, I didn't buy it. I just happened to stumble upon it. But it was many years ago. And it was funny enough. It was before I met my wife, who happens to be one of the most hardcore Nine Inch Nails fans I've ever met. And I was reading an article about Trent Reznor and his battle with drug and alcohol addiction, and how he found himself wealthy and successful, yet miserable and completely addicted to cocaine and alcohol. And in the article it told some stories about, late nights in the recording studio, doing drugs with musician buddies, recording albums or whatnot, and how it had just become a major part of his life, and he realized how destructive it was becoming as well, and the amount of money that it was costing, and the legal issues and things like that. And the article was for whatever reason, the article was very powerful to me. And because we're talking about, celebrity drug stories, I wish I would have found it and pulled it up so that I could link to it and share it with other people. But Trent Reznor's story of getting sober is a very, very powerful one to me. And I recommend highly to anyone who maybe is struggling or maybe is considering the fact that they might have a problem. Find this article. I guarantee it's online somewhere. Trent Reznor drug addiction recovery, and you'll probably find that article or something similar. But his story was so powerful to me. Here's a guy whose entire career and lifestyle revolved around doing drugs with all of his musician friends, who just got rid of it and got rid of all the people in his life who were part of it, that didn't want to follow him into this life of recovery, and he had to kind of reinvent himself after becoming sober, and it is very interesting. So we're running out of time here. We're basically out of time. But this has been the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast, coming to you live on Radio Valencia. The bumper music has started, gentlemen.
Okay.
So we
Good night.
we'd love
Right.
to say good night. Hit
Thank
us up
you,
on the
Aaron,
email.
for opening our show, and thank you, Rampage Radio, for following us. And see you guys next week. Thank you. Good show. Good show.
Great show, gentlemen. Always a pleasure. We'll see you next week. This is the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast on RadioValencia.fm. Shoot us an email at soberhappyhour@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, all those other places. And we'll be back same time next week. Hopefully we'll have the podcast up to last week's episode and this week's episode. But as I always say, if you or yours are considering getting sober, I highly recommend it. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Good night, YouTube.